Hi, Jim.
Hi, Fan. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Jim, in this episode, we will be debunking some very widespread health or exercise myths. Um, One of them is probably BMI, and I have a little story to share.
Okay.
um, a year ago, if you look at my pictures, if the audience here looks at my pictures, probably I looked thinner. At the time, my BMI was like optimal. You know, if I Google it, female, 38 years old, with this weight that I had, yes, I looked healthier. The numbers were healthier, but I was very unhealthy, as a matter of fact. And 1 year onwards, now we've been working together, training. I'm not as thin, but I'm much, much healthier. How can we look at BMI and other, health myths that we should be aware of? Like, where's the truth in
Okay.
that?
Well, let's talk about BMI first.
Yes.
So, BMI is not really a health myth, it's a health misunderstanding.
Uh huh.
So, the purpose of BMI is actually for research. So, when researchers go out and want to see the effects of weight, and they need a large population. So, what they do is they take this large population, and some of these people, let's say, use me for an example.
Right.
I'm 100 kilos.
Mm.
Okay. So, according to BMI, I'm obese.
You're far from obese.
Right. Because what BMI just does is it takes your 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and says, okay, these 10,000 100-kilo people, overall, a lot of them have a very high fat content. That's actually what they're trying to measure.
Right.
But in the individual, it doesn't apply because in the individual, you can have more muscle. I could be a bodybuilder, then I could be way higher and have very low fat. Or I could have very little muscle and a lot of fat, right? So I could be way out of the norm, or I could have a large bone. So there's all this individual variation. So the BMI, truthfully, is a useless indicator for the individual, but it's a very good indicator over large populations, if that
Right.
makes sense, right?
Right.
So, really, the number that as an individual we should be looking at is your body fat percentage. Now, they don't use that in studies because they can't go around testing 100,000 people's body fat.
Mm.
It takes too time intensive. It's much easier to say, okay, you're this height and you're this weight and you're this age. We'll give you a number, right? That's
Right.
easy to do. And because the way statistics work, it works out fine. But for individuals, no use. So don't even look at BMI. It's
Okay.
literally a useless stat for the individual.
Right. So, what myths that we can talk about in here that we should debunk? Like one of them, if you get older, we hear that you should just stay at home, watch TV, and be careful of your movement. I hear things about women getting muscular if they lift weights, and getting bulky.
Well,
What do you think of that?
weight training, whatever you want to call it, strength training, resistance training, whichever word or words you want to put into it, there is more myths about it than almost anything else I can think of. And the two big ones you hit on, right? One is as we get older, because we're becoming more frail or older, we should, be careful, not do resistance training and, maybe walk and really cut back on all that stuff. And the other one is, oh, well, if you're a woman and you
Yeah,
train,
that's
you're going
big.
to get bulky. I'm going to be, the woman version of Arnold Schwarzenegger, in a year. Both of these are crap. So the reason why is let's talk about older people, men and women equally.
Right.
As we age, a thing called sarcopenia occurs. What that is we lose a certain percentage of our muscle mass.
Okay.
Starts around 35, 40. There's obviously some variation depending upon your genetics, but part of the aging process is if you do not do resistance training, you will lose 2 to 3%, varies from person to person, of muscle mass, lean muscle mass every year.
Wow, that's a big number.
It's huge. The implications of this are huge.
Mm-hmm.
So one is if you do if this becomes chronic sarcopenia is when you literally um, can't walk upstairs, right? I mean, it starts impacting your ability to live your life.
Right.
This is often the people we hear who slip and fall in the tub, right? Because they can't support their weight on one
Right.
leg. trip, break a hip,
Mm.
which, breaking a hip is, I can't remember the exact number. It's somewhere 60 to 70% of people who break a hip, elderly people who break a hip,
Right.
their mortality rate jumps by 80%.
Wow.
Right? So
It's
it's
big
a
too.
huge difference. I will look up those numbers in the next thing and we'll make sure exactly what they're. But
Yeah.
the gist of it is, because now what happens is you broke a hip, now you're hospitalized. Guess what? You're hospitalized, you're not moving at all. Guess what you're losing? More
But
muscle
more
mass.
muscle. Yeah.
And we forget that muscle not only does strength, the muscle plays another important part in our body.
What does it
It's a
do?
storehouse for protein. You go, well, why
Okay.
is that important, right?
Why do we
Well,
need protein?
protein. Well,
Yeah.
protein, actually, our body breaks down proteins into smaller things, amino acids.
Okay.
And these are used to throughout the body, cell regeneration. So I'm sure most people are aware of, as we lose skin, we build new skin up, we get cut and it heals. Just the wear and tear of our cells, they degenerate, and then we have to build more up. Otherwise, would be dead, right?
Right.
So the amino acids are a key component. So if you're losing muscle mass, it's like taking your gas reserve and just shrinking it down.
Yeah.
So you can think of muscles almost like a gas tank, right? And as you're losing the muscle, that gas tank's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because you can't produce as much amino acids. Hence, your body can't repair, recover, and thrive.
So it's like slow death.
Yes, actually, an interesting point is most people think like you've heard like Gandhi going on a starvation diet, right? People that have gone on starvations, we think that people die of starvation because of malnutrition, right? Hunger and don't not having nutrients. That's
Right.
not actually what tends people to die from. What it is they lose all their muscle mass. Their body can no
Wow.
longer support itself, and your body shuts down and dies. So it's actually the loss of muscle mass that causes death,
Wow.
right?
Wow,
So
that's big. So, can you tell us of another exercise myth? Like, if I can't, for instance, I hear, especially the younger generation, mid 20s,
yeah.
I can eat a diet full of, fast food options. And if I go to the gym twice or three times a week, that's it. I'm in good shape. What do you think of that?
This is actually one of the easiest myths to debunk, and not even sure why it even exists,
Okay.
right? So, because it's simple as this: how many calories are in one cookie? One chocolate chip cookie that'll fit in your hand. Do
I
you
don't
know?
know. No.
300.
300.
300.
That's a lot.
Now, how many calories do you think you burn if you run a mile?
That I know. I think for a mile, I don't know, like 60 calories?
It's 100
A
roughly.
100 calories, yeah.
So, if you go out and run a mile, let's say you feel you're in great shape and you run 3 miles, you've burned 300 calories.
Wow.
And you go home and you have two cookies, you're 300 in whole.
It's the same
It's
thing.
it's we don't exercise to lose weight.
Hmm.
That's a myth,
Okay.
right? That in itself is a myth. It can help us maintain weight loss.
Right.
We exercise to be healthier, right? To maintain our muscular structure, our cardiovascular system,
Right.
right? To make our, if you view our body as an engine, to fine tune it as best as possible. Now, by adding muscle, right, what we do is we increase the amount of calories we burn every day.
Right.
So it's not going to help us lose weight, but what it does do is as we add lean muscle, we up our metabolism, which means if you eat the same amount, but you've added a kilo of muscle, you're burning more calories every day.
You're going
Over the
faster.
long
Uh-huh.
term,
I see.
you will lose some weight.
Right.
But it's not, I'm going to go push, lift these 5 pound dumbbells and, oh, I'm going to burn off these calories and I'm going to be, a svelte model in 3 weeks. It's
Right.
not,
Yeah, it is a
right?
myth.
It's a long term thing. And really, what we're trying to do with physical exercise and weightlifting is be healthier, right? Not lose weight.
Yeah, speaking of cookies, speaking of, now I'm craving one, right? I shouldn't. Speaking of cookies, there are so many options now on the market, keto bars, all these options that we hear of. I don't know, other names too. And people run to that and think that this is how I'm going to have a healthy diet or eat healthily. What do you think of these ultra processed foods?
Okay, well, let's unpack that. There's at
Okay.
least three different things in there that are
Okay.
problematic. So let's start with the term diet. I don't even use the term diet. I can safely say I have never put a client of mine on a diet. Diets don't work. Diet, in my mind, means I'm going to change the way I eat in the short term
Hmm.
to make a short term goal. I want to lose 5 kilos.
Okay.
And then once we achieve that goal, I'll go back to what I was doing before. So what actually happens is you may or may not lose your 5 kilos, but if you do, I almost guarantee you, not only will you put that back, you'll probably put more back on,
Wow.
right? So what we want to do is change our daily diet, our way we habitually, if we want to call it, eat, the way we
Okay.
eat every single
It's
day,
like training.
right? That's what we want to change. So the word diet gets confusing because we end up using it in too many contexts. Like we've all heard of the keto diet. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
And we've heard of the primal diet and the
Paleo.
Mediterranean diet. Right. There's a million diets.
Right.
Vegan diet. Right. Those are systematic ways of eating. Those are daily diets that we can adopt. But what happens is the industry has commoditized the term diet and what it means.
Very much
So
so.
what they want to do is have you a diet and then sell you keto bars. Well, keto bars have nothing to do with the keto diet. That's just repackaged, ultra processed food to take money out of your pocket,
Yeah, they're
right?
very expensive.
Right. And we see this over and over again. Any diet that becomes popular, immediately after it becomes popular, we see slim fast drinks or you name the thing. Like you said, we have
Slimming
these key
teas.
bars. They'll come up. Yeah,
Yeah. Green coffee.
miracle meat, right? I have
Sure.
nothing against being vegan and eating a vegan diet,
Okay.
but do not, under any circumstances,
Okay.
eat fake meat. All that really is,
Fake meat.
yeah, it's a bunch of stabilizers and artificial flavorings and artificial colorings. It is the most processed food you can eat, and it is so bad for you.
And it doesn't
So
taste good.
basically, what you've done is taken a diet that is clean, healthy, vegan, and then made it into just as bad as SAD, which is a term we use for standard American diet, right?
Sadder American
Which
diet.
actually is
Sad.
actually the world diet, but it sounds better as SAD, right?
Oh,
So,
interesting.
but yeah, so this commoditization of diet of I mean, it's across the board. We all know we're in a commercial environment, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, really what these all are doing, these are manufacturers' ways of getting ultra processed cheap food, which is full of empty calories, which we can discuss later, what empty calories are,
Yeah.
and feed them to people.
Right. Empty calories. That's your phrasing. We
Yeah.
will discuss in our next episode. We'll talk about modern diet and all the challenges that we have as adults, as mothers, to, with our children and all the options that we have on the market, expensive and not expensive. So, all of that we'll
Yeah,
discuss in
there's a
our,
lot to unpack there.
yeah, we will. Thank you so much,
Well,
Jim.
thank you for having me. I hope it was educational.